Welcome to the Enterprise Thought Leadership Podcast, where we explore the latest in enterprise trends, tech, and strategy with the top leaders shaping the future.
Hi, we welcome you to our podcast On Stage with Enterprise Thought Leaders. My name is Kanika and I'm the managing editor of Top CMO and Top Martech, our enterprise marketing technology publications. We have engaging conversations with global thought leaders and industry experts, which reach over 1.3 million business leaders worldwide. AI is now the first touch point between brands and consumers, with tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity acting as search engines. Website traffic is expected to drop 25% by 2026. Instead of optimizing for search, brands must now optimize for AI. These updates help marketers ensure their content is not only created but seen. We have with us today Naz Ramizani to share her insights about how brands can optimize for AI instead of search. Welcome to the show, Naz. Great to have you here with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me on. Naz, I am the VP of Product at Optimizely. At Optimizely, we work with about 10,000 brands globally, and we power their entire marketing operating system. So they all the way from generating content, collaborating, publishing content, optimizing, and experimenting on that content. We work with a lot of brands globally to really power their next adventure as they go on this AI journey with us as well.
Right. So a little about Naz's own journey. She's, as she said, the Senior Director of Product Management at Optimizely. She leads the strategy and innovation for the company's CMS portfolio. Since joining in 2020, she's held leadership roles including Chief of Staff and Senior Product Evangelist, giving her a unique perspective on both customer needs and internal product development. Known for her ability to quickly analyze complex challenges and deliver actionable solutions, Naz is a trusted partner across teams at Optimizely. She thrives on turning technical depth into intuitive, scalable products that empower marketers to create and optimize content with speed and precision. At Optimizely, her focus is on advancing CMS capabilities, including Optimizely Graph and AI-powered experimentation, which help organizations deliver smarter, more personalized digital experiences. She holds a bachelor's degree in international business and statistics from California State University, Sacramento. Anything more you would like to talk about Optimizely, Naz?
No, we recently came to market with our AI strategy. So my role specifically at Optimizely is to work with a lot of customers for their websites, not just to run and to be able to be usable, but also for their websites to perform as we go on into this new adventure. So I'm very excited about the topic that we're talking about today.
Right. So we spoke about the challenge of optimizing sites for AI rather than for just search engines. What solution do you see for this issue?
I wish that was a one line kind of answer to come in. First of all, I want to say calling it an issue feels a little bit wrong to me. So is it an issue? Of course, it feels like an issue right now because so many marketing leaders are looking at their Google Analytics dashboards, just like all the traffic trend lines are going down. But it is also a huge opportunity because now we have this new channel. There's this whole new traffic layer that we haven't really explored. Most people don't really understand. So it really presents an opportunity, not even long-term for brands to really figure this out, but even short-term for those companies that are paying attention to the news to be on the forefront of being the top of the list on ChatGPT when somebody asks questions about their brand. So let's talk about the problem that is happening. Obviously, there is a decline happening on web traffic overall. So we're seeing this across industries, across regions, across different companies. Yes, predictions out there are about 25 to 30% by the end of this year. Everybody will see the traffic to their websites declining. We see that it's a lot more extreme in certain industries. We see that it's a lot more, some industries might be protected from it. But yes, on average, I have 9,000 different domains on our CMS, for example, and we're already seeing that the average is around 22%. So that is not changing. But interpreting that data is very important. So that basically means that humans aren't coming and clicking and coming to your website. However, the part that is a little bit invisible right now happening on the web is that your website is being used. It's just being visited by user agents from all of these LLMs. So your website is being scraped a lot more. It's being cataloged a lot more. It's being understood a lot more than it was before. But the issue is that we're completely blind to it because there isn't really any analytics that is trustworthy. So trying to read the lines about the role of your website for humans versus the role of your website for AI user agents is the biggest challenge that most marketing leaders as we go forward need to really understand.
So, what would you recommend to be the main things that CMOs and marketing teams need to be aware of while optimizing websites for AI searches?
So one of my recommendations for everyone that we talk about is try to think about the job of your website, right? So the role of your website is evolving, but it's not fundamentally changing. The way to think about the content on your website is to think about there's one group of audiences that are still humans. There's one group of audiences that are AI user agents. When you think about the human audience, right, we're seeing that traffic decline. However, people will still come to websites for specific actions. In my opinion, those actions will remain as any human who wants to validate anything. So they've already done their research. They've gotten their information from Gemini or ChatGPT. They just want to come on your website and make sure that the insurance information that is provided on whatever LLM gave them is actually correct. So they're coming on your website, they want to click as little as possible, and they want to find that information as cleanly as possible. The second thing that humans come to websites for is any sort of branded experience, right? Like think about the Apple checkout experience. Nobody is going to give that up. Sometimes you want to do power browsing. I go on Farfetch and browse on page 17. I'm not going to stop doing that. So there's a lot of unique experiences. So if you do have a brand and you have a website and there is a part of your website that is really, really popular, or it's something that attracts people regardless of LLMs or anything, it's not just a source of information, it's providing an experience. That is a good place to invest in because customers will still come and seek those out. And the third and last part of what humans come to websites for is for any sort of complex action, right? So we're still playing around with this idea of will customers buy? This Shopify and ChatGPT partnership came into play. Google Gemini is really going down the shopping experience with Google Shopping. There's all these touches on retail. Let's assume that in the next couple of months, we're all going to feel comfortable buying B2C retail clothing items, shoes, stuff like that from ChatGPT directly without ever going. I would actually predict that very quickly we're going to start trusting the LLMs more than the actual websites for payment processing for any of that stuff. However, that doesn't change. If I want to apply for car insurance, for example, I still do need to go on a website. If I want to open up a bank account, if I want to, any sort of complex action, which is very high trust for services or products, any sort of large B2B organizations, all of those will stay protected to some sense for the websites that you're on. So really taking stock of what percentage of your website is fitting to some of these buckets for those less than kind of 70% of your usual traffic to come to websites, finding the information that they want, is an important and painful and a little bit scary practice to go through for most websites. Because if you look, we recently went through this with a very large insurance provider, for example, in North America, and we came back with, here are the 4 pages that matter for the humans, and everything else is kind of like extra content that you have. I'm not saying those are not good, but the optimization of those human experiences becomes very important on very specific experiences. Now we get to the second audience that we have, right? So that's for humans. You also have user agents. Creating machine readable content, structured content, because your website is your digital property. It's your content warehouse for these agents to go shopping from, right? So having content that is structured well, that agents can come to your website and read and understand becomes very, very important. So your website's job actually becomes more providing content for these user agents and less providing those 4 pages for humans, because you're kind of maintaining this small audience. But at the same time, how you get visibility, your entire visibility layer, how people explore your brand, how people find information about your brand, how people find out who you even are, is all shifting to this separate traffic layer, which is happening outside of your website, whether we like it or not. That's the reality that's shifting over to LLMs. When talking about the kind of AI traffic, something that I think most people miss sometimes in the craze that is happening right now with all the hype words and the GEOs and AEO and all the words that we're throwing around, is that if a user, let's say I go on ChatGPT and I want to find out about shoe companies and I'm looking for a very specific arch support, for example, when I put in a prompt in ChatGPT, whatever that may be, the first action that happens is that ChatGPT is searching the web, right? So obviously Gemini is using Google, ChatGPT is using Bing. That's the whole Microsoft partnership. Perplexity is using Braze. Every single one of these LLMs has partnered with a search engine, because it's very difficult to build search engines. So this is the kind of good news for marketers, is that these are search engines that we kind of know. So that's the first action. This is why SEO matters more than even before, because ChatGPT is searching for my prompt in Bing, by the way. We all collectively as a marketing world decided that Bing didn't matter and it was all about Google. And now that's like really shifting, because obviously Google Gemini has some of the traffic, but ChatGPT is still the source of LLM traffic coming to your website. And therefore optimizing for SEO for Bing becomes very, very important. And that's been kind of a forgotten part of SEO for a little while. But that's the first thing that happens. So then ChatGPT is like looking at the first page of the Google page, the first page of the Bing page, and out of those 10 URLs, 20 URLs, whatever that may be, nobody really knows, but the first few URLs, then ChatGPT is going to those links and trying to digest the information to see how well it answers the question that was asked as a prompt, right? So this is the second part of the kind of journey that these LLMs go through. That is what brings us to GEO. So without good SEO, whatever you do with GEO does not matter, because you're not even going to be one of the links that gets scraped. Now let's talking about kind of generative engine optimization, answer engine optimization. Everybody has a different word for it, regardless of what the word is. Now an agent is coming to your website. It has a question that it needs to answer. It's trying to figure out, A, do you have the content to answer this? If you do, then what is your credibility score? So those are the two things that LLMs on your website are trying to configure. The first part of that is, excuse me. The first part of that is having structured content. So one of the biggest misses that we all have on all of our websites, and this is a good step for every marketer to go through on your website. The reality of today is that all the LLMs out there still, their context window is still pretty small. So if you have them read a URL that has very heavy HTML, let's say you put a bunch of GIFs and videos on your homepage, and it has a multi-click form and it has complex media underneath it, ChatGPT is going to get on that page and be like, nope, can't read it immediately, because they cannot actually process that entire page. So this is why, like, gated content, for example, if you have gated content on your website, that is purposely built for a human, right? Like, you want somebody to log in or give you something in order to get information, but the user agent isn't going to fill up and to accept to receive emails from you, right? Like, that's immediately you have blocked the information from that user agent accessing that content. So gated content is that any sort of complex experiences, multi-step experiences, you're immediately stopping that user agent from being able to read that content. So this is when we get into machine readable content, very clearly annotated, split apart, easy language. So you're not talking a lot of marketing fluff. But that's where you really bring that kind of informational tone of voice for the agent to be able to extract and scrape out the information that it wants in order to surface it for the user. Does that make sense?
Of course, it makes a lot of sense because we are in the business of websites. So it's a great learning for us as well.
Yeah.
So you spoke about content. Do you think the role of content creation, and some parts of it you've already touched upon when you're saying that complex content or videos or images or GIFs or whatever will just make it a little more difficult for AI to search through it? What else will change if brands start optimizing sites for AI? Content optimization will be one part, but what other website elements will become more important? What will be better when an AI search engine is going through your site?
That's a great question. So I think that very quickly we're going to see very different user expectations from the journey that they get on the website. So when talking about the human visitors on websites, right, you're not browsing leisurely anymore. Your users want information quickly, and they want that information fast. At the same time as that trend, obviously, insert the TikTok era, the new generation entering the world, having shorter attention spans. That's another kind of trend happening. At the same time, you're seeing this trend of all of us collectively as a society deciding that a chat interface is something that we actually like, which is something that we haven't enjoyed as a collective society before, but ChatGPT has really appeared to change our minds. And having that, I don't want to find the information, here's what I want, tell me the answer, is really shifting the customer expectation. So I predict that very quickly all people who own websites need to adopt that true chat interface. So I think that all of us as users, let's talk about it as users, we're going to go on an insurance company, a retail company, whatever that may be's website, and I am not going to look at the categorization and try to find information. I want to ask the question that I came to answer, and I need that answer to be presented to me. This opens up the whole chat experience. I think that some brands are kind of playing around with it. So that is one shift that is going to start to happen. The other benefit of chats for website owners, not talking to anybody who has a website, investing in have an agentic chat on your website also solves for the agent to agent interaction. That is the future, and that's where we're all going to probably then end up being. So to very simply explain agent to agent is that you don't just want to continue the current situation that is happening where all the LLMs, user agents, are coming to your website, scraping it as is, and they decide what information is relevant, what information is credible, what information they surface. Instead, you would want to have an agent at the front door of your website that treats this agent slightly differently than humans, because right now we're treating all of these user agents as humans, right? So having that kind of interaction, agentic interaction, the chatbots actually allow for that to happen behind the scenes as well. So it's a kill two birds with one stone, because you're giving that quick to answer experience to your human, but also for user agents, you have a stopping point, you have a front door to your website. You decide what information you gave to all of these LLMs, user agents, to be surfaced anywhere else. The other change that I think content optimization is such a big word, and especially right now when we're seeing already 95% of all digital content is AI generated, which is crazy. I think something that's starting to happen, but it's really going to pick up speed in the next couple of quarters, is having a validation or autograph, something like that. Let me explain what I mean, because I don't really know what to call it. Google started having a invisible to humans, but machine readable kind of signature on all AI generated images. So all LLMs can now read if an image has been generated by Gemini. So there's a bit of a signature on it. I think a similar thing is going to start happening on content. So LLMs will actually be able to tell what piece of content, what piece of media, what URL, what page was spun up by which LLM. So this is going to create a whole marketplace that we're not currently, everybody is just trying to get users. So ChatGPT and Gemini's competition is more at the model level, and we're not seeing it. But very soon they're going to be competing for traffic, right? They're going to be competing. There's like competing models out there. And Are they going to kind of skew one way or the other based on if a human interacted with a piece of content, if a human approved a piece of content, if ChatGPT wrote it versus if Gemini wrote it? That's a bit of an unknown that we're all going to go into. However, in any time when there's this much uncertainties, the recommendation is to have good workflows in process and have good systems and have good mechanisms in place that allow for that scalability with AI, but also create your controls as a brand, as a website owner. For example, Google really cares about EAT metadata. So who wrote this? When was it published? When was it last edited? Kind of those pieces of information that give credibility to any piece of content. And these are very good early signals for us all as website owners to try to understand how these LLMs will define a credibility score for you, right? So we are, for example, with Optimizing CMS, creating a mandatory series of GEO metadata. For that GEO metadata, some of the easy ones are questions and answers. Every page should be structured in the metadata as 10 questions and 10 answers to those questions. So what are the questions that we want to be answering when they're asked in any sort of ChatGPT? That's a simple one. Keywords, all of that stuff we're already used to with SEO. But another core section of that is EAT data. So was this written with the help of AI or not? Was it that AI wrote it and we edited it? Was it that AI wrote it and we approved it? So what is the human and AI interaction in this piece of content that is going into the digital world? When was it last updated? When was it last edited? How many people reviewed it? Those are kind of information that we see that give that content a lot of weight and credibility as we go forward. A very interesting statistics is that if you look at between Perplexity, Google, ChatGPT, all of them, where they're getting their information from the most, over 50% of all of their citations are from Wikipedia or Reddit. ChatGPT is very heavy on Wikipedia. Perplexity is about 70% of their traffic is Reddit. Google is using YouTube, Reddit, and Wikipedia. So this really tells us what the LLMs prefer. LLMs prefer documentation style content, none of the extra media because they don't need that. They're not humans. They just need structured content. But it also tells us that it really prefers the user-generated content. How they drive that credibility is not trusting a branded voice, but rather trusting user-generated content. I can guarantee you that most CMOs listening to this don't really have a Reddit strategy, for example, right? So that is a huge area that user-generated content turned into in the marketing world, something for the B2C retail brands, right? It was something that only if you sold items under $300, you really cared about working with those partners, having those reviews on your website, having those review generation things, working with influencers, getting content on TikTok and Reddit. It wasn't really something that enterprises cared about too much, but that is fundamentally changing. Over the weekend, Microsoft announced also that GitHub is coming now under Copilot. So GitHub is another whole world of user-generated code that has been maintained as a repo. A lot of developers are very unhappy about this, but this will make Copilot significantly smarter when it comes to helping developers. But this again shows you the power of user-generated content. So just to recap, talking content optimization is way too big. And what I worry about every time when we talk content optimization is people thinking, is the tone of voice right? Is the branding right? Am I saying the words in the right way, for example? And that definitely plays a part, and you should still think about how you can get more informational, how you can get more quick, like that is a part of it. But there's bigger things at play that by just focusing on content optimization, we're going to completely miss the boat. So thinking about what your strategy is around user-generated content, thinking about how you structure your content on your website is going to be huge kind of avenues that are a bit untouched for a lot of website owners today.
I mean, extremely informative conversation this is becoming. We did not know any of these. And it's like, I've really learned a lot in just the first 3 questions. And the fourth one is about GEO-specific metadata, which you just referred to. What role does it play in this new optimization strategy and platforms? Would you want to elaborate on that, or I think you've covered most of it already, right?
I've covered most of it. The one thing I do want to say is there is a lot of noise right now. So for those few CMOs that are trying to understand how to optimize their website for GEO, nobody's looking to completely re-implement and build a brand new website, right? So the reality is most of the CMOs out there are trying to figure out how do we get our existing content to work a little bit more for us. And there's a lot of noise. If you start Googling about this topic, everybody has an opinion. Everybody is an expert. And one thing that I want to say is that nobody knows. Like right now, nobody knows. There is such a gap that exists in the market when it comes to analytics. Both of these LLMs know what they have with their analytics. They are not telling me. So I, as a brand owner, let's say I am doing everything right for GEO purposes. I have no idea what prompts people are asking ChatGPT. I have no idea how many times, if somebody even asked about the brand of my company, my website is being referenced. I have no idea. None of that information is made publicly available right now. So anything that anybody is recommending is based on a lot of research, based on other people. Everybody is kind of guessing right now. There's a lot of researchers that are trying these new mechanisms out and then seeing the impact at the end of it. Those are kind of the ones that I enjoy the most. But the reality is there's a lot of hidden analytics right now. So there's a lot of guessing going on. So really, my recommendation to a lot of CMOs is try to get at least multiple different sources and sources that you trust, not just average marketers, average SEO people trying to generate content for LinkedIn, and really try to validate the information that is being thrown around. The other thing is that don't wait and see. That's the biggest issue that this lack of clarity creates, is a lot of people were like, we'll decide, nobody knows, let's wait and see. But that is just gonna kind of leave you behind. The barrier to, if everybody was wrong and you did something, is actually very, very low. I'll give you one example. So something that everybody talks about is having an LLM.txt file. It's a similar concept to a robot.txt, but it's just built for LLM. So you can tell LLMs, these are the pages on my website that you can scrape. These are the pages on my website that you are not allowed to look at. There's so many marketers out there saying this is the way to optimize for GEO is having an LLM.txt file. This is the way so there's a lot of strong opinions about does it work, does it not work, and you get that from both sides. The reality of the situation is, if you have played around with SEO, if you've been in marketing for longer than 2 years, you know what a robot.txt file is, right? Like robot.txt file doesn't actually solve your SEO. It's the bare minimum. It's just the starting point. Having it probably helps. There's no absolute proof to having a robots.txt file stops anything from kind of being changed as far as your score for Google goes, for example, right? It's the same thing with LLM.txt. All you're doing is slowly signaling to these LLMs that you're trying to create content for them, right? So it cannot hurt. I'm not saying it will definitely completely restructure your website and traffic will go up by 30%, but it will help. It's the same thing with GEO metadata as well. With GEO metadata also, having questions and answers on different pages of topics, is it definitely going to help? Is it going to rank you higher? Nobody can tell you because there is no analytics to point to say, this is after you implemented, this now went up. But it doesn't hurt. So don't wait, even though there is a lot of noise out there.
So I think that's where you've answered my last question as well. What should CMOs be prepared for this development? Because it is going to happen. The rate of change is so fast that you can't really go back anymore. So this is the last thing that I wanted to ask you, Naz. I have to thank you for the time you made for us today and extremely useful insights, not only for the podcast and the audience, but also for us here. My team members who are listening in are also very interested. Good amount of information everybody got today from you. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for the Enterprise Thought Leadership Podcast. Please do follow us on social media and subscribe for more ideas and insights. Until next time.